Ethan pulled into the employee parking lot while the sky was still dark, turned off the engine, and sat there wondering why he already felt exhausted before the day had even begun. Another 12-hour shift. He couldn't remember the last time he called in sick, arrived late, or left early because he believed showing up every single day was how people eventually got ahead. Hard work always wins. So he kept saying yes to overtime, volunteered for weekends, covered other people's shifts, and quietly told himself every extra hour was bringing him closer to the life he wanted. No days off, no excuses. Friends slowly stopped calling because they already knew the answer. Family gatherings came and went without him, and nights that once held laughter became just another opportunity to work. It'll be worth it. That's what he believed. He wasn't wasting his time or chasing comfort. He was sacrificing today because he truly believed tomorrow would finally look different if he just kept working harder. Then payday arrived, and as he stared at the number on his phone, one question quietly echoed through his mind. Why do I work this hard and still feel like nothing is changing? Before we continue, welcome to Lyon Invests. This channel isn't about getting rich overnight. It's about questioning the financial beliefs that quietly shape the way we earn, spend, save, and build wealth. Because once you understand the pattern, you start seeing money differently. If that's the kind of thinking you're looking for, I'd love to have you subscribe. Now let's go back to that question. Why can someone work harder every year, make more sacrifices, do everything they were told to do, and still feel like they're standing in the same place? The uncomfortable truth is that Ethan wasn't asking a strange question. Millions of hardworking people quietly ask themselves the very same thing without ever saying it out loud. They wonder why longer hours don't create the progress they expected, why bigger paychecks disappear so quickly, and why life never seems to move as far ahead as their effort does. It's an easy conclusion to reach because we've been taught to believe that effort and financial progress naturally move together, almost as if one guarantees the other. It feels true. After all, if someone works twice as hard, shouldn't they eventually get twice the reward? That idea sounds fair, logical, and almost impossible to argue against. But fairness and economics are not always the same thing. The economy doesn't measure how tired you are, how many weekends you sacrificed, or how often you stayed late. It measures something far less visible than effort alone. That's where the story changes. Because hard work is real, but hard work isn't the whole system. And once you begin seeing the difference between working harder and creating greater value, Ethan's question slowly becomes something much bigger than one man's story. It becomes a question about how all of us have learned to think about work itself. Most of us grow up hearing the same advice. Work hard, stay consistent, and eventually everything else will take care of itself. It's simple, easy to remember, and that's exactly why the belief survives. It sounds true because we've all seen hardworking people earn respect, promotions, and opportunities along the way. So where does it begin to break? It usually happens so slowly that almost nobody notices. One extra shift becomes a normal week, then another. Before long, working 50 or 60 hours no longer feels unusual. It just feels responsible. The strange part is that life quietly adapts around those hours until busyness starts feeling like progress, even when nothing meaningful has actually changed. The calendar fills up, but the savings account doesn't. That's when people often blame themselves. Maybe I'm not working hard enough. Maybe I need another job. Maybe everyone else is simply trying harder than I am. It's a painful conclusion because it feels personal, even when the real problem has nothing to do with character or discipline. Think about what actually happened to Ethan. He didn't become lazy. He became more dependable, more available, and more willing to trade his time for income. On paper, that sounds like progress. But notice what never changed. Every dollar Ethan earned still depended on one thing: showing up tomorrow. If he stopped working for a week, the income stopped. If he became sick, the income slowed down. If the factory reduced hours, his paycheck immediately felt it. That's not failure. That's simply how exchanging time for money works. Time has limits. Every person receives the same 24 hours. You can become more skilled, more efficient, and even earn a higher hourly wage. But eventually every time-based system reaches the same invisible ceiling because there are only so many hours available to sell. This is where mathematics quietly enters the story, not to make things complicated, but to explain something our emotions often hide from us. If your income grows only by adding more hours, then growth eventually slows because your available hours cannot grow forever. That's the limit. It's not a limit on effort. It's a limit built into time itself, and understanding that changes the question from how can I work harder to what kind of work continues creating value after today's shift is over. Once you see that limit, something else becomes impossible to ignore. If time is finite, then working harder can only solve the problem for so long before it reaches a ceiling. That doesn't mean hard work has no value. It means hard work needs direction. Think about two people who both work 60 hours every week. From the outside, they look equally committed, equally disciplined, and equally deserving of financial success. But beneath the surface, they're participating in two completely different systems. One spends every hour maintaining today's income. The other spends part of those same hours building something that can continue creating value long after the work is finished. At first, the difference is almost invisible because both people still wake up early, sacrifice weekends, and end each day completely exhausted. Their lives look identical. Their future doesn't. That's why the belief can survive for decades. We naturally compare effort because effort is easy to see. We rarely compare systems because systems are almost invisible while they're being built. A small investment compounds quietly. A business improves one customer at a time. A valuable skill becomes more scarce over the years. None of those changes make much noise in the beginning. Progress whispers, busyness shouts. Our attention follows the noise, which is why so many people mistake motion for momentum without ever realizing they're two different things. Motion simply means you're doing more. Momentum means yesterday's work is still helping you today. That's a completely different kind of progress. Imagine pushing a heavy car across an empty parking lot. The first few steps demand tremendous effort because you're creating movement from nothing at all. Once the car begins rolling, each additional push feels slightly easier because the movement you've already created starts helping the next movement. Wealth behaves much the same way. In the beginning, the results often feel disappointingly small, which is exactly why many people give up before the system has enough time to work for them. Hard work isn't the enemy, it's the foundation. The mistake is believing the foundation is the entire house, when in reality, it's only the part that allows everything else to be built. Ethan didn't stay stuck because he worked too hard. He stayed stuck because no one had ever shown him that effort alone and wealth creation operate under different rules. And once you understand those rules, the question slowly changes from how many more hours can I work to how can today's effort keep creating value tomorrow? That question changes everything because it stops measuring success by exhaustion and starts measuring it by what your effort continues producing after the work is finished. The goal was never to avoid hard work. It was to make hard work last longer than the day you performed it. That's why ownership has always mattered. Whether it's owning investments, a business, valuable skills, or intellectual property, ownership allows yesterday's effort to remain valuable tomorrow. Time still matters, but it no longer carries the entire load. Think about the difference between carrying every bucket of water by hand and building a pipe that keeps the water flowing long after you've stopped walking. Both require effort. Only one keeps working. That's the invisible shift most people never see because we've been taught to admire how hard someone works instead of asking what their work is quietly building. Neither approach is morally better. They're simply different systems. One system rewards today's labor. The other slowly rewards yesterday's decisions, and over many years, those rewards begin stacking on top of one another. That's why compounding feels so strange. It asks you to believe in progress long before the progress becomes obvious. Human psychology struggles with that. We naturally trust immediate results more than delayed ones, even when delayed results eventually become much larger. That's why the belief "work harder" feels so comforting. It promises a solution we can control today, while building systems requires patience before visible rewards appear. Patience isn't passive, it's strategic. Every meaningful financial system asks the same question. Are you only earning from today's effort? Or are you also creating something that can continue earning after today ends? Ethan never lacked discipline. What he lacked was a different lens through which to see the relationship between work, time, and value. Once that lens changed, his question changed with it. He stopped asking, "How many more hours should I work?" He started asking, "What am I building with the hours I already have?" That may sound like a small difference, but questions shape decisions. Decisions shape habits, and habits quietly shape financial lives over decades. Maybe the greatest lie was never that hard work matters. It does. The lie is believing that hard work alone is the destination, when it was always meant to be the beginning of building something that can outlast your time.